Okay, today is a Saturday. It's 10 p.m. So what I need, I was gonna. There's a couple things that are floating in my mind. Okay, and I wanna address that because what I'm attempting to do is gain some consistency, a reliable consistency that can be um, used to make consistent returns, obviously, right? So I thought the transition from the 5K to the 10K would be a very simple one. Okay, that's what I thought because I've already done it, right? So I went into the 10K thinking, okay, so I get a couple of payouts on the 5K. That means I should be able to easily take care of it on the 10K. But what seems to have happened is that while I was trading in the funded stage, I've become very conservative. Okay, something that was not used to get to the funded stage. Because I reflect on it, I look back on the record of how I passed the phase 1 and phase 2, and phase 1 and phase 2 both were passed within 2 weeks of each. 2 weeks from beginning to the end. So within 1 month, I was able to take care of phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, and I got into the funded stage, and then I got paid twice. Okay, and then FOMC came by and just swooped it out of my hands. Okay, because I just decided to just keep it. All right, so I see what the problem was for that. Okay, now on the 10K, I started out all right, but it was okay because there were a couple of things that I did. Okay, one of them was, even though it was slow, okay, and I was just mimicking how I would trade when I'm funded. All right, so what are those couple of things? So initially what I did was I traded small, and I was actually in a bigger scope of the trend. When I was trading, what I would do is I would buy into the dip, okay? Because it was uptrending, it was a good idea to buy into the dip, which means that initially there was a drawdown, but the idea is knowing that the trend is going up. And when I trade like that, it will work if the trend is up, okay? Then, so I was able to acquire a significant amount of gain. And I was at that point when I was at about like 5.5% up in 1 month, less than 1 month, let's just say 1 month. So I was up 5.5%, and then something happened. Okay, all of a sudden something happened. Something in my background started to change. The market started to change, and then soon as I encountered a losing day, I began to be aware of the fact that I'm in a territory, the uncharted territory, that I'm reliving the uncharted territory again. Okay, so I just then it just started to like cascade down, and then what's very familiar, which I have seen in the past, which I have seen, is that my trading will get like unraveled. It's like it's like hitting a harmonic of a particular system, and it has reached a harmonic frequency, where the harmonic frequency will cause a self-destruction kind of a thing. How do I know that? So I remember what, psychologically speaking, is this. When you lose a trade, you don't want to make a trade within the next 2 minutes. You want to take a breath. You want your mind to wrap around the situation, because unbeknownst to me, there are chemical releases that occurs in my body that causes me to be in an altered state. There's a movie called Altered State. And so when that happens, all logic is thrown away. So what seems to have happened is that, if I were to recollect what happened for the past three days, is to get me into this situation, I was down 2% on the first day, right? Which was Tuesday. And had I known that when I experience a huge loss, generally, these things are common, to everybody. I mean, even prop firms, they know these things. However prepared you are, psychologically speaking, what happens to the body is this. Everybody, to a certain extent, experiences a chemical reaction. Unless somebody is a psychopath who's able to control everything, right? If you talk to a psychopath, their emotion is completely detached from anything that they're involved in. That is why they're psychopaths, because they're not normal. Okay? So, really, psychopaths would be an excellent trader. Okay? Psychopaths would be an excellent trader because they're able to separate their emotion from trading. And that's why they're incredibly good at what they do, which is day trading. But most people, like myself, psychologically speaking, am not a psychopath. And so what that means is the external stimulation causes me to have a emotional reaction to the situation, okay? So when I experienced this loss, see, there's a couple of things that triggered it. One of them was, I started to saying to myself, okay, I'm 5.5%. I'm just gonna gun it because I'm like so close now. That's the last thing I should have done. That's how I remember this situation. I was $7 away from passing. I was $7 away from passing the 5K account, okay? I was $7 away, and I said, all I have to do is make $7 and I pass, right? Because $400 is 8% of $5,000, which means I was at like $393, and all I had to do was get $7. But what happened is that I'm saying to myself, oh, I'm gonna go for it. And then it just cascaded into like losing the challenge. After that, so I can get there, but there are thinking that causes me to detract from the mission at hand. The mission at hand is to become, okay, to trade accordingly. I have to be extra careful when I'm at the doorsteps, okay? I have to be very careful so that when I make the trade, then I am observant of what losses will do and what I need to recover. How do I get back to it? How do I maneuver myself back to where I need to be, okay, in order to pass, right? So, by the way, this is a great building. It's four flights of stairs, and if I do this like as much as possible, I'm gonna be in shape, okay? Whatever I eat, I'm gonna be in shape, okay? Of course, I'm not gonna be able to eat much these days, but So now I gotta go. I gotta go figure out what I need to like throw away in my storage unit so that I can close it out. Because the storage unit costs about 50 bucks. Okay, 50 bucks is too much right now. When I get to the 50K and I start getting payouts of the 50K, it's gonna be a totally different story. But right now, 50 bucks is a lot of money. Okay, so I have to take some contingency plans. It's like talking to a homeless guy, and the homeless guy is talking about putting his the homeless guy has placed a overwhelming emphasis on his political views instead of trying to figure out how the first priority for him is to become homeful, okay, not homeless, right? So he needs to figure out the best avenue for him to become to live in a house, okay, not living outside of the house, okay. The first priority. And God wants you to have some place to live, okay? He does, all right? That's the first priority. Then you can talk about politics after you've established your basic needs. What are the basic needs? You need food, shelter, okay? You need food, shelter, clothing, and transportation these days. That's what you need. You have to have these things to socially function in this world. So now that I see how I've become this person who has lost hundreds and hundreds of problem challenges, I've reverted back to it because the thing that I was doing was working fine until it didn't. And then the first day and the second day is saying, hey, okay, so I'm obviously in a tilt mode because what I tried did not work and it became a heavy loss, and I wasn't able to recoup it in time, and so that's why I'm in this situation. So that means how do I? So that's what happened. Okay, that's what happened. It was somebody on YouTube commented on a video that I made about this loss, and he says, "Well, looks like you lost your discipline." Yeah, definitely. The emotion will cause you to lose your discipline. And something in my mind that started off that first day was this thought that was injected into my mind. It says, okay, why don't you go a little bit bigger this time? Why don't you go a little bit bigger this time so you can take care of it, okay? So I suppose if I were to take risks, it would be at that point where I'm like a little bit past the halfway point, right? Because if I take risks at a point where I'm like in severe drawdown, I certainly don't want to be taking risks. I need to take a day off because it's like 70 bucks. It's 70 bucks to take on a challenge. It's not easy, all right? It's not cheap, okay? It will become cheaper. It will become cheap once I become profitable. All right, but not right now. So what's the game plan, all right? So the game plan coming up when the market opens on Sunday, which essentially means that the most likely the Asian market is too slow, okay? The Asian market is too slow. And so if I were to trade it, I would probably put a trade on and allow it to just let it run, okay? Because there won't be, I don't foresee a situation where the trade is going to be changing so much, right? There won't be much volatility in the Asian market, okay? The futures market and the forex market, and price of gold either. Maybe gold might be volatile at this stage, but so I keep thinking in my mind, okay, so I need to figure out and correlate my energy into a few setups that I can use when I see it. So I can consistently take it. I want to take those setups that are consistent. Okay? And so I know if I'm able to determine what the trend is, then I can use those. So I made four setups, 4 types of setups. Okay, the first one, interchangeable, that I wrote down is like these are like the Fantastic Four kind of a situation. These are the 4 type of trades that I'll be taking. Right, it's going to be all based on. My trading essentially is based on support and resistance. What happens around those support and resistance areas? And some people are very descriptive and honest about saying things, okay? About what really works and what really don't work, or what happens to it, right? So even if something is trending, generally speaking, what it's gonna have is it's gonna be trading around support and resistance, okay? Even if it's trending, it's gonna be trading around support and resistance. When that support and resistance is being traded around, sometimes what it will do is when there's going to be a break of structure, when there's a break of structure, okay? When there is a break of structure, what will happen is when a break of structure occurs, what's going to happen is the trend is going to change. When there's a break of structure, a trend will change, okay? When there's a break of structure occurs, a trend changes. And so those are the areas where I need to be careful of when I'm making. So the first example is this. When there's a break of structure, one example is it's going to break out of a range. Okay, when it breaks out of a range, that's the first type of trading that I want to be involved in. Okay, but first I have to identify, is it in a trending range or is it in a trend? Okay, is it in a trading range or is it in a range bound situation? Okay, so Friday, so it looks like the tension between the China and US has declined a bit. That's why the sell-off has subsided considerably. But still, the forex market, the crypto market is still coming down. Okay, so what that means is it's possible that it still is in a trend mode. Okay, so it looks like it finished off at a point where it's saying, okay, so it could go up higher or it could go sideways. Probably those are the two possibilities for what will happen. Okay, so now the strategy is to figure out, first identify what the trend is. Okay, what do you think is the trend? Okay, so what's the structure? What's the structure of? Okay, so the most critical thing about trading is that, okay, so identify what the structure is so I can trade accordingly, right? If I don't even know what the structure is, then how do I know what to do, right? If I don't know what the structure is, which clearly defines the trend, if I don't define it, then I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, I have to clearly. So these are the order of thinking that I need to have. It's like driving a car. First, you have to take your car keys out of your pocket, if you have it in your pocket, or if you have it in your hands. Then you have to insert it into the driver's side door. Okay, or if you have the new high-tech stuff, you just push a button and everything is unlocked, right? And the door opens and all that stuff, right? But there's a sequence of things that needs to happen. Then what you have to do is put on your seatbelt. You have to be in your car. Then you can hit the start button, right? Or you could just start the car outside to warm it up when it's wintertime or something. So there's a sequence of things that needs to happen. So when the car started, it's going to be in park, okay? And so it needs to put it in either drive or whatever it is, or put it in reverse, okay? Whether you're backing up to traffic or something. So that's the sequence, and then you identify what the speed limit is, then you go to the speed limit, and then you figure out what the destination is, and you figure out how to get there. If it's familiar for you, it's second nature to you. You have to drive this way, that way, the other way, and then you drive. And then when you get there, you have to park the car in a slot, and you stop the car, and you stop the car, and you lock the door, and then you exit, and whatever you need to do, right? That's the sequence of things that needs to occur. That is the sequence of things that needs to occur. Trading is the same way, right? Trading is the same way. Expecting to make a trade without identifying, without at least trying to figure out what the trend is, okay? And the structure is, okay? And whether something is near the support and resistance area is a pure guess, okay? So if you're like half-baked and you're thinking about it, the trade that I took, which cost me 1% within a matter of 3 minutes, it cost me 1% because my thinking was totally emotionally drowned. It was drowning in emotion. Okay, that's something that I cannot afford to do. Okay, but that's what I did. Right, so what are the sequences? This is a clear thinking. This is a clear thinking away from YouTube. The channel YouTube. The YouTube has this habitual thing that has been established, because whenever I sit there, I have to turn on this YouTube and I have to watch it, right? So now the idea is simple, okay? So what are the things that are really, really critical when I'm making a decision, okay? When I am making a decision, in order to improve the chances of my thesis being correct, is to correctly identify the things that allows me to make the right prediction, okay? So what are required to provide the confluences that are required for me to make the right decisions? See, I've been doing this without really describing it because I have been habituated into making these trades. And so far, the trades that I've been making have been right on without really piecing it apart, taking it apart and understanding it. So these are the critical things that I need to identify initially in order to put together and make the right trades on a consistent basis. If I don't identify these things on a solid, rock solid manner, I'm gonna make trades that are gonna be hit or miss most of the time. Even if I'm making the right trades most of the time, it's not fine-tuned to what I need to do in order to be a profitable on a consistent basis, okay? If I am profitable on a consistent basis, that also allows me to make a bigger trade, take on better risks. And so my identification skill allows me to provide a higher level of risk that I can take, okay? So obviously when I'm at a point where I'm emotionally drowned in chaotic nature, which I'm completely separated from my logical side, it's best to just take some time off and allow the chemicals to subside. So there are people who already know this, even professionals. They talk about how when they're in an emotional state, it's best not to trade. It's hard to do. It's hard to do when the market is open, but that's the right thing to do, because chances are that is one of the confluences that are used to define whether you're going to be effective or not. Okay? Because if you're careful and when you trade small, even if it has a large drawdown, it's small because you're trading small, and then you have a higher chance of winning. Okay? So that's how it works. So, but when you're like drowning in emotion, it causes a great amount of risks to be taken, and chances are, it's gonna be a horrible situation, right? So that's how it works. All right. All right. It's only 20 minutes. I got another 20 minutes to go. So let's continue on this path to understand what I need to do. Okay. Climbing up and down the stairs is a great exercise. It's a lot of work, okay? A lot of work that burns a lot of calories. It burns a lot of calories, helps me to stay healthy. and also keeps me awake, keeps me alert, and gets my mind in the right place. So I believe I'm on the right path. I'm on the right path, obviously, right? I'm on the right path. Okay, I am on the right path. You know what I mean? I'm on the right path. Okay, I'm on the right path. So all I have to do, these are confluences. These are confluences. So what is my emotion? Okay, what have I experienced and how is it going to detract from trading well? Okay, that's one confluence. That emotion is one confluence. Because emotion, I've already disclosed that it has a significant impact on the way that I trade, right? Emotion has a significant contribution in the end result of my trade. Okay, so that's one confluence. So if I were to describe the type of confluences, it would be emotion. The other is, have I had enough sleep? Okay, have I had enough sleep? Am I physically fit? Okay, am I physically fit to make the right trades, right? So, and then, have I eaten? Do I have enough energy to take on the trade, right? So that's something else that I need to consider. All right, then that's just me getting ready, being prepared to make the right trades. The other part is, okay, so then, what's the market doing? I have to identify the market so that I can figure out how to trade. I have to read the market correctly. I have to read the market correctly. Okay? I have to read the market correctly. So I was talking about this situation. Okay? When I'm in a particular situation, okay, something's going to tell me whether I should be buying or selling. Something's going to tell me that. Okay? So something's going to tell me whether I should have a conversation with somebody or not have a conversation with somebody. Right? Okay? So apparently there's something called phishing. Okay, there's a thing called phishing. Okay, phishing in software language lingo is somebody is attempting to infiltrate your computer. One of the ways that they do that is by when they put an email into your email. Okay, so what that does is it causes the email to open up, and then essentially the virus will take over and essentially commandeer your computer. Okay, so something has to be done in order to protect myself. Something has to be done to protect myself from these situations by taking into consideration where the email is coming from. Okay, so if the email is unrecognizable, it's best not to open it. Just delete it, right? So, and they're so cleverly made that you could literally lose everything, right? That's how things are done these days. Okay, so what I need to do is something that I have neglected to do because I was like, so far I have to admit at this point too that I have not clearly substantiated a list of things, a checklist of things, despite the fact that it is tedious and mundane to do something in a matter of checklist, but the checklist needs to be done. The checklist needs to be done in order to check off whatever I need to do in order to prepare myself. When I'm entering into trade, then I'm not prone to making like emotional decisions. Just like I did the last couple of trades that I made towards the close on Friday, which cost me 1%. Because I was trading emotionally. Okay, I was just trading emotionally, just clicking. I'm saying, okay, so if I do this, it should work, but I didn't check the validity of it. First of all, I was not prepared to make the right trades, obviously, right? So that's why I did that. So what I need to do, okay, so what I need to, so I'm gonna take a little bit, I'm gonna take a 5, I'm gonna start exercising. I'm gonna be totally engrossed in the things that I need to do to make myself recover, okay? So the idea on the first day is to avoid, I'm just gonna say it, but I don't know if I'm gonna follow it, but the idea is to avoid the Asian market, okay? Unless I'm thinking, unless I see something that's significant, I can take, okay? But the idea is to avoid I have to avoid the Asian market. Once I avoid the Asian market, the idea is to trade small, make incremental amount of gains. If I have to make 50 trades in order to make like a 0.5%, that's perfectly acceptable at this stage. Because what I need to do is get out of this drawdown, and once I once I'm on a positive side, that I can think about other strategies in order to improve on my current predicament. Okay, so my restaurant job has been stabilized, and so whatever condition happens, I have everything covered. I know exactly how many hours I'll be getting for hopefully for the next couple years, okay? Hopefully for the next couple years, I know exactly what the conditions will be, and all I have to do is show up and then go home at a certain time. That's it. And whatever happens in between is irrelevant, okay? It is irrelevant. However much work is there is irrelevant, okay? I do my stuff, and then just check out when the scheduled time is there, and I just check out. That's it. That's the thing that I will need to do. So I'm like at complete peace. There's no problems anymore. I'm done. Okay, it's good. The restaurant has a support from the local community, the Catholic community. Now the owner made a couple statements. He's an honest, faithful man, so I believe his statement, and therefore, when I made a concrete adjustments to what I can expect for the next couple years, and so that's what's going to happen. Now, all I have to do is focus on something like passing the 10K, and then after I pass the 10K, then I'll get a couple payouts. Once I get a couple payouts, those couple payouts will fund my 50K challenge. And I'm going to take on the 50K challenge, step 1 and phase 1 and phase 2. And I'm going to pass the 50K challenge, and then I'm going to start getting payouts, at which point the 50K payouts will be a significant amount of money. Okay, it will be a tremendous amount of money for me, okay? And then I will be less burdened. To whatever happens around me, okay? Because the money will be a significant factor. It's gonna be a tremendous amount of money. Okay, once I get a payout, it's gonna be like a couple months of wages. Okay, and if I get another few payouts, it's gonna be another couple months of wages. Then I can take that and then get into 100K and a 200K. At which point it's gonna be like 6 months of one payout is going to equal to about 6 months of pay. Okay, and if I get to 200K, it's going to be a whole year's of pay, even more. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, working part-time at a restaurant right now, I see my pay stub. Okay, I see my pay stub, and I can see how much I've made so far, and the amount of hours that I've been working. It's not much. It's a very, very small amount. It's a very, very small amount of hours that I'm working. I'm essentially working. What is that like? What is that? 12 hours. That's about 48 hours in 1 month. 48 hours in 1 month, and 8 hours times what is that? 20. That's 8 hours 20. That could be about 160 hours. But I'm working less than 1/3 I'm working, I'm working 1/3 amount that I used to work, okay? 1/3 amount. All right? 1/3. Okay? Less than 1/3, okay? So that's the current situation. I'm looking forward to this week's market open. So so to recap, so to recap, okay, so to recap, essentially what I need, what I'm, see, in order for me to make a trade, okay, in order for me to make a trade, I have to define all these confluences, okay? I have to answer to these confluences. The confluences are, okay, so there's at least two parts of this confluence, okay? There are at least two parts of this confluence. One part of confluence is, as I mentioned, is my emotion prepared to make a trade? Okay, so the second part is, okay, so did I have enough sleep? Okay, the third part is, did I get enough exercise? Okay, so the fourth part is, okay, so did I nourish myself? Have I eaten enough? Did I eat the right food? So there's four types of things that prepares me to be in a to be prepared. Okay, to be prepared to make the trade. Okay, so one of them is, okay, so have I, so the restaurant that I work at, there's something at the front door that says, okay, so whatever's happening to you, you just keep it outside the door. And when you get in, you whatever the issue is gone. You just work. That's what it means. It's the same thing with trading, right? You cannot bring the baggage into trading and expect to have good results. You can't. So that's the first part. The first part. Okay. So the first part is having being able to make the trades. Okay. Am I in a state? Am I in a condition to make the trades? That's the question I need to ask myself. That's why, like, you know, SMB Capital is a very, very complex. SMB Capital is a very complex prop firm. Okay, that's why they're successful. But the psychiatrist who said this, are you taking your temperature? Okay, are you taking your emotional temperature? That's what it means. What is your emotional temperature? Now I see what that means. Your emotional temperature is equally important as making the right trade. So if I were to describe this part of it, and I was just focusing on something that was, see, here was, okay, so essentially the logical side was attempting to disseminate the things that are required to learn the rules of trading. Okay, that's the one part. That's the first part. That's the conscious side, right? That's the conscious side. But it always has been the subconscious side that has been lurking. It has been exposing itself. It has been, it's like the it's like the wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay? It's like the wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay? So the wolf is the emotional and the temperature thing that occurs. So this lady who is in Canada, who trades, and her husband during the time of COVID was trying to figure out what they could do, right? And so they started trading, and then she stated on her one of her YouTube videos that when she's on her monthly, okay, when she's on monthly period, she becomes mentally unstable. Okay, okay, so that's what happens. So when you take the so that's when you're mentally unstable, you're like a wolf, right? Right? Oh, right? Like just like that, right? So so this is the first time that I'm actually mentioning this. It has been like hinted at, but I've never really understood it. It's like when you go to church, people talk about, okay, the wolf in sheep's clothing, right? Yeah, the wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay? Everybody is a wolf in sheep's clothing when you go to church. You really are. Because when you're not inside the church, you're outside and you misbehave. That's the wolf. But when you're inside the church, you're sheepish, okay? and then As a Catholic, you do things that are wolfy, okay? Right? So the wolf will eat grandma, okay? And eat the little Red Riding Hood, okay? And so then the wolf will go to church and then will enter into confession and say, well, Father, the weekend, the little Red Riding Hood had a basket of goods, and so the little Red Riding Hood was going to grandma's house. And so I, the wolf, went to grandma's house and ate grandma for breakfast. And then I put on the nightie, and then I waited for Little Red Riding Hood to eat the Little Red Riding Hood and the basket of stuff, right? But unfortunately, the Little Red Riding Hood recognized me, okay, and told me, my, what big eyes you have, Grandma, okay? My, what, 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 um, what, what big teeth you have, Grandma, right? And so, essentially, in life and everything else, that's why that's why. So let me just introduce you to what a little bit of what the part of Catholicism. Okay, so there's a unique part about confessions. So so in Catholicism, there are several things that are repeated on a daily basis because these things that are incanted, okay, incanted, incanted, that is so deeply meaningful that although it seems like I understand it, but there's meaning after years and years and years and years and years. Okay, so one of the sponsors when I was in RCIA told me that your understanding of Catholicism, God, is going to be like this. Okay, so what that means is that every week I would go to church, and he's right. He was kind enough. So when I go to church, there will be a thing that will be said, and then as I start to age, the meaning behind it will start to change, to evolve in, perpetuity, okay, forever, because the meaning conjured by Jesus Christ is so deep that it needs to be understood for the rest of my life. Okay, so that's why when I go to church, the sequence of events just repeats, but the meaning behind that becomes a livelier. It becomes enlightened, and the things in the in the mass provides a description of what happens on that particular day of the year. Okay, and so as part of being a Catholic, it is one thing to, because we all are sinners. We all are sinners. And so as a sinner, I go to church to receive Christ into my body, to extinguish the big bad wolf. Okay? So as part of the living life as a big bad wolf, okay? Then there is a thing called as unique as being a Catholic, is that there is a way to speak with a Father who represents the Father, Heavenly Father, and and um, and make a confession. Okay, to make a confession to the Father and to the Father, and then your sins are forgiven. Okay, there is a bit of restitution that you have to do, right? And the father says, your sins are forgiven. Okay, your sins are forgiven. Okay, that's what he says, right? That's what God does. God says your sins are forgiven, and that's unique to the faith of being a Catholic. Okay, that's unique to being a Catholic. That's unique. You can go to a Father and your sins are forgiven, and and says sin no more. But obviously, obviously, you're a human being, right? You're a human being, and you're going to sin again. You're going to come back, okay? But you are forgiven, all right? You haven't. God has forgiven you, okay? And if you don't sin, even better, right? So, So that's the thing that needs to happen. But there is a thing called the 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 wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay, that's what it is. A wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay, so essentially trading is very similar to it. Okay, so when I hold myself in front of a mirror, what I see is the logical side. Okay, what I see, the reflection that I'm seeing, okay, in the mirror is the logical side, attempting to understand the market. Okay, I'm attempting to understand the market, and what is behind, what is actually here, okay, that I am not able to see, is the subconscious side, which is my emotion, how much I had to eat, what did I eat, did I get enough sleep, okay, did I get enough exercise, okay, did I have a lot of bit of coffee, am I ready, am I prepared to make the trade, okay. So that's the big bad wolf, okay, the big bad wolf, okay. And in front of me, I'm looking at the charts and I'm trying to figure out the duality of trading is that there is this subconscious side of me which I have been attempting to see, but I could not see my own self, because when I look at the mirror, I'm only seeing the charts. I wasn't able to see the emotion that was being played out, and I couldn't recognize it. What I don't know, I don't know. Okay? And so for the past 5 years, I'm trying to figure out the subconscious side. Now, the subconscious side is slowly it's slowly coming to a fruition. It says, what is your emotional temperature? What is your psychological temperature right now? Okay? All right? That's important. So there's a couple parts. When you make a lot of money, okay, then the next trade that you'll make, you're going to be influenced by the results, and you're going to take outsized risk, okay, because you believe that the risk you've taken will be rewarded, and so chances are the money you made, you're just going to lose. That's how it happens, okay. And then on the flip side, when you lose, you're going to get in tilt, and so you're psychologically messed up at that point too, because then you're just gonna go. Your mind is shut down, and so you make these trades, and you're just gonna keep losing too. So at both points, a self emotional temperature check needs to be made. Okay, that's the big bad wolf. Okay. Now, if I look at it on the other side, that's preparing myself to understand how that. It's so critically important, because it is a substantial part of trading where because I'm looking at the charts and I'm focusing on the chart, I'm not prepared to understand the subconscious side that was making the decision for me. Okay, that's why when I look at it afterwards, it just doesn't make any sense. But it made perfect sense in the heat of the moment. Okay, it really did. It really did. Even when I was losing and I'm taking the trade right afterwards, it still made sense. Okay, but the reality is. Then there's the second part of it, okay? So that's the subconscious part of it. There's the second part of it. So when I'm making a trade, when I'm negotiating, when I'm doing something, obviously, if I don't... So here's the most simple thing that I take granted. These people who are like meditating talk about, okay, so when you're taking a step, what are involved in when you're taking a step, right? I didn't know what the heck they were talking about. Now I do, okay? Now maybe they're a good trader. They can make a lot of money from what they're doing. But obviously, when you're taking a step, when you're standing up, you're asking yourself, okay, so is there a headroom? Okay, is there a headroom? You're trying to describe. It's like creating an instruction in an equipment that is sold. Okay, so when a manufacturer creates a product, there has to be an instruction, detailed instruction of how to operate and how to maintain the equipment, right? So there is a manual that is created. So what happens is, because things are so trivial, that I take granted the simplicity in simply walking from here to the kitchen to make myself to eat. But in reality, what's happening is that the ceiling has a certain height, okay? And there's a certain amount of steps that I need to take forward before I have to turn left. And then I stop and I go take another turn. Okay, when I take another turn, right now there's some construction going on. There's some plastic thing there that's keeping the dust inside there, and so it actually impedes the progress on one side of it, and so the hallway is like half full, half blocked off. And so when I negotiate that turn, I have to turn right a little bit, and then I go. And then before I go there, there's an automatic sensor that turns on because it saw me there. Okay, it has a sensor, and then the light turns on. Then I go in and I open the refrigerator. I take whatever I need. I know what I need to do. Put it in the microwave. Put it in a certain minute. If I put it too long, it's going to get dry, and I have to take out the sriracha, and I got to put it in there. I got to roll it up, and then when I come back here, then it actually is a rolled up hot dog and a burrito. Okay, that's how it works. And so there is this wolf, which is a subconscious side, which is hiding underneath grandma's doormat. Okay, and then the sheep is essentially the charts. The charts are there. I have to describe just the way that I'm walking from here to there. I have to describe what is the most important thing about what is the most important thing I was trying to allude to while I was exercising up and down the stairs, is that I have to clearly define without instruction. See, what happens is that people think that I am elastoman, okay? Which means that my arm can just automatically go to the refrigerator, grab things, make it, and bring it back, okay? That's what trading is. That's how most people think about trading. They bypass the technical knowledge that's required to go from here to here, navigate to there, also be prepared in a mindset to get to the point and grab it. So there are two things that need to be prepared in order to make the trade. Now, the second part is the sheep portions of trading, which is essentially understanding what is important when I'm making a determination, okay? So obviously, the first part is you have to identify what the trend is. For the period that I'm trading, I have to know what the trend is. If I don't know the trend, then it's a pure guess, okay? It's a pure guess. I have to know. I have to look at things. There are clues that tells me, okay, the trend is this way, okay? So the trend is this way based on I'm looking at what the left side is telling me. The left side is telling me the trend is this way. Such as, for example, statistically speaking, 80% of the time, based on what I've learned from Al Brooks, is that 80% of the time, the trend will continue 80% of the time. And 20% of the time, there will be a breakout, okay? So if there is a range-bound situation, chances are it's going to hit the rails, it's going to come back up, okay? 80% of the time. That's how it works. Statistical basis, okay? And so what happens is that even in global economic news, not every day is going to be a range-bound day. It's not. There won't be earthbound crazy things that are going on in the world unless President Trump is in the office and he's stirring things up, right? So it tends to have more often. So statistically speaking, maybe the trend will still be there for maybe 60% of the time while he's in office, right? So the market is like so dynamic right now, right? It's refreshing. So what's happening is that then the first part is the most important part is understanding, taking a guess on what the trend is. I have to identify what the trend is. If I don't know what the trend is, then what am I doing? I'm taking a stab in the dark. Okay? Right? Does that make sense? I'm just logically thinking it out there. Because the easiest thing, what most people do, and they get rudely interrupted into the reality of trading, where people now will spend thousands of dollars either learning from market real data or spending money in training, right? So there's training materials that can be had. It teaches you how to trade, okay? It teaches you how to trade, but you spend money on it. So you'll either learn from experience or you're gonna pay money to acquire that experience, okay, by an educator, right? So what people do is trading is easy, right? It's easy, but it's very, very difficult to do. So it's easy by clicking, putting money in there, and you do something, and you get the end result. But if you want to steer the results in the right manner, so that you can make the right, you can size the risk in the right way, you have to put some smarts into your trading, right? That's why this guy has this Al Books has like hundreds of videos. I mean, hundreds of like charts and things like that, right? So the idea, so then the important part of understanding the sheep portions of it, okay, the understanding the sheep portions of what's going on is to understand first of all what's okay. So trend is important. So what defines a trend? Okay, so that's where the clues start to come in. Okay, and then when certain things, then it can deviate into the magnitude of how something happens, and then when this particular structure occurs with that trend. Okay, so the trend is there because of this structure, but this trend is either sideways. See, the highest level is essentially the trend, right? It's going up, it's going sideways, or it's going down, but it can have multiple different types of structures. The structure is a medium of how the trend is being established, and the structure. See, I'm just talking. I'm trying to put things together, so I'm discovering this to myself too. Okay, and so what happens is, so there's a trend. So how do I define a trend? So I have to see the structure may not be the structure when the structure is fully formed. It could look like it's like playing a chess. When the chess is initially initialized, you have billions of combinations that could occur. But as soon as it starts to open up and it comes to a conclusion, then you conclude, oh, that's how the structure was. And it's the same with trading. That's how the structure is, and that's how it became. So, like, if I were to look at, so what happened for the past 3 days was, but towards the end of it, it actually looped up. So that's why it concluded in the full movement of what the trend was. Okay, the trend was, so it apparently there was a conflict between there was a economic conflict between China and the U.S. And China did something like blockaded soybean or something, right? So it caused the robots, the software that apparently, based on what they're talking about is these days, software makes up their own decisions. The AI portions of the software takes up the news and processes it instantly, and then makes the decision on what to do with the market. Okay. Whereas a human being would have to look at it for like 15 to 20 minutes or maybe 40 minutes to decide what the real is, right? Looks at all the data and figure out what to do. But apparently these days, the robots, the software, will make the decision instantly based on the information that comes out. It compiles the pieces together and interprets what's going to happen. And so for the past 3 days, like Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, it started to decline because of that singular news. And because the news was so significant, it had magnitude, it caused the market to drop like 3 days, right? And so it essentially evaporated quite a few things. Okay, a lot of the capital was erased, and so then that was the structure. Based on that macroeconomic news, it was actually trending, essentially just trending down, It was up a little bit like that, but it was actually trending down. Okay, and then the subsequent news was properly analyzed, and then the market decided that the news was overdone, and so it recovered a little bit towards the close. Okay, so there was an overreaction. It tends to have an overshoot. Okay, this is where electrical engineering. I'm sure if you're a medical doctor or whatever it is, you will have a unique uh, interpretation of, like, maybe like a chemical, right? So let's say somebody, if you're a medical doctor and you give somebody a medical dosage, right? The medical dosage will go in and immediately impact it, but it's going to it'll probably have some sort of a overshoot effect. Okay, in order for it to, otherwise, if you're logarithmically controlling the dosage of the prescription, then you can either go slowly like this to take a longer effect to get to the full 100% effect, or you could have a dosage that goes up, surpassed 100, and then oscillate to the point where it's 100%. So there's multiple ways of understanding it. So what the market what the market did was there was an undershoot and it came back. Okay, so that's the reality of how the market behaves. And so the totality of the structure, the trend was down. Okay, the trend was down based on looking at it. Obviously, people will say it's a downtrend because from point A to point B, the price points were different, and the second point B was lower, so it was trending down. Okay, obvious. Whatever it did in between is the architecture, the structure of how it got there. The structure it got there based on how it did. Mostly, it was a wide band downtrend. Okay, so it was essentially a wide band downtrend. So it had time to move up, come back down, move up, come back down for the past 3 days, right? So people thought it was over, it went up, and then it started to sell off. People thought it was over, it went up, and then it came back down, and then finally on a Friday in the afternoon started to recover, right? So if I were to so 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 when I'm looking at this particular situation of understanding the dualities of trading is that when I look at it, okay, so what's the trend? And how do I determine the trend? Trend is defined by what the structure is and at which point what the structure is. Okay, so I have to say, okay, the structure is this, which clearly defines the trend. And then I can say, okay, so the trend is this way, the structure is this way. Okay, as far as I know, based on what I see, it's going to continue until there is a sufficient resistance, a sufficient support. If it's in a downtrend, there's going to be a sufficient support that's going to alter the structure. Okay, like this week as a dishwasher. Now I'm not going to be doing dishwashing. Okay, which just totally messed up my mind. Okay, all right. It just totally reprogrammed my mind. Now I'm just going to be doing just prep work. Okay, and so what that meant was literally my brain was re-scrambled, reprogrammed. Okay, now my directive is different when I go to work there. Okay, and so it literally impacted my mindset. Okay, so that's the wolf side. Okay, then there's the sheep side, which is now I'm elaborating and then understanding it. The only area where a reversal occurs is going to be the support and resistance, right? There can't be any other place. That's why it's called the support and resistance. They call it the liquidity zone. They call this. There's another word for it. Some people call it. I think. What is it called? So they have their own little following, and they call it the liquidity zone. Where that support essentially means that if support means that there's buyers there. Okay, that's why they call it the liquidity zone. Okay, so the only way the structure can change is at a point where there's support and resistance. It looks like support, but if it goes right through, that means that it's not really a support. It was before, but it's not. And so it's continuing on its structure. That structure still has that energy from that global economic news that causes it to change in price and keeps moving in that direction. And until there is a significant amount of support, then that structure will continue. And the only way to, the next step is to understand, okay, so now it's at a point where it is at a support. Now, how is it behaving? Okay, so now I have to ask myself this question. I want to make a trade because it reached a point where I believe it's going to be a support and resistance area, and I want to be able to make the trade. And so what do I need to see to show me that I have clear connection with what I need to do in order to enter, knowing that now the support has altered the structure, and it has, which obviously means, well, it could still mean that the trend is still continuing, but it could be a different way. So it could be a wide band now, it could be a narrow band, it could be something else. Okay. So it could change. It could change its behavior. It could be at a less dramatic turn. So the structure can change, but the trend can still be retained. Okay. So I have to ask myself at a point where a specific support is, what's happening. So what do I need to be looking at? Okay, what do I need to be looking at when I do that? So when I see that it is, when I see a certain portions of the structure that are showing a reversal characteristics, not a continuation characteristics, then can I safely say that, okay, this is the point where there's a high probability that when I enter the trade, knowing that there's a reversal, then I can take that reversal as a reversal and take that trade, right? So that's the part. Okay, then I have an educated guess instead of just guessing. The and then when I get to the point where I'm about to enter, then I have to ask myself what kind of things that could possibly happen to say that, okay, even if it moves in a certain way, even if it moves in a certain way, I'm expecting it to behave that way. Okay. And so what I've noticed on Friday when I took that trade that caused me to lose like 1%, just I was attempting to trade thinking that it's the support, and then it broke the support, which I thought it was support. So it obviously wasn't a support, and then it broke through, and then I closed, and then immediately came back up. Okay, and then when I shorted right after before it came back, I lost twice. Okay, immediately, right? Because I wasn't thinking right. My brain was shut off. So, so these are the things that that's what this Al Brooks is teaching about. Everything that he's teaching about is showing me the behavior that I should be expecting when the trade is evolving, when it's being painted. The price action, it's called price action. He's showing, so he showed me what price action is, right? I've been studying this guy, and I haven't. Boy, it took me a long time to put those things together. Okay, I'm by no means there yet, but I'm still far more successful than what I was. I'm still prone to making these like kindergarten mistakes, but I know better. I know better. Okay, so one of these days I'm gonna be far better, and when I take the risk, it's gonna be far more potent. Okay, the results will be far more successful. Okay, and I'm gonna be more aware of how to make a trade, and so I could hear quietly talk about it and try to plot it out, but talking about it and recording it seems to be a far better thing to do. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so that means that when I'm making the trade, that's what I have to do. Then I have to. So I'd love to make a trades when it's in the support and resistance area. Okay, because I'm either making a continuation of a trend. Okay, which I still need to work on. I still need to work on quite a bit. The other is the reversion. When it reverses, then I can get into it I get in, I can get in early. Okay, expecting that when it reaches a certain point of support and resistance, I can respect it. But I'm putting a risk on, so I need to rethink that out. Okay, so that I can reduce the losses that I have. So that's the first part. That's one part. The second part is trading around these support and resistance areas, but I need to fine tune that support area and how it behaves so that I can take appropriate action when my thesis is incorrect. Okay, so those are the couple areas that I can take advantage of. The other part is when it breaks out, what are the things that I need to look at? Okay, so when it breaks out, what does it do? How do I need to characterize this so that I can take advantage of it instead of like it dips a little bit, it went out, but it came back up, and it went right back into the range. Okay, so that can be very costly. Okay, sometimes it does that. All right, something has a outwardly move where it requires a liquidity to be soaked up right below, and then just comes right back and continues on his range bound situation, right? So that's that. So there's four things that I'm looking at. The other thing that I want to incorporate into is, out of the four, the fantastic four type of strategies that I have, is the fourth one is actually, don't get into a drawdown. Okay, so if I see something that is trending, then why don't I just scale in? Okay, so how do I scale in? So I'm trying to figure out that as well. And so because I've already identified I can clearly see that it's trending up. Okay, however long it is, whether it's a small branch or big branch or a large branch of that particular thing, and how committed I am to hold on to that, right? So that defines how the results will be, right? So when I'm looking at this situation, I'm looking at both sides, which is if you go to church, there are people who are wolf in sheep's clothing. Generally speaking, everyone is wolf in sheep's clothing. The only one who's not are the saints. The only one who's not is Jesus Christ. Okay? Everyone is wolf in sheep's clothing. Everyone. And how is that related to trading? The psychology, emotion, and the food and exercise and sleep is the wolfy part. The wolf part. The touchable, the physical part, the material part, the human being part. And the other is the logical side, which is essentially the pre-formatted price action that is disclosing what the market is doing. It is a matter of matching the preparedness of the wolf and the sheep, and in order to be a profitable trader, I have to be a wolf in sheep's clothing.